Hey, what's going on, DDO players? Axel here. Today I want to talk about the upcoming free-to-play raid called Den of Vipers. This is not in the game yet. It will be at some point in the future. We don't have a release date yet, but I was able to hop in on the first preview this week. A group and I were able to complete last night, so I want to go through and explain the mechanics of the raid, talk to you about it, and give my initial thoughts and impressions on how good of a raid it is. So I am going to show gameplay footage as well for the rest of this video, but obviously if you don't want spoilers for the raid, you've been warned. Click off this video now because I am going to completely spoil the raid and tell you exactly how it works. So I have to say a little disclaimer of this is of course after one day of playing the raid, so if I get some things wrong regarding the mechanics, I apologize, but no one is an expert on this raid yet, and I wanted to give you all my first thoughts, and we're all still learning, so there may be new things we discover, and I'm sure there will be because it's a bit of a more complicated raid. In terms of the story with the raid, it ties into the current Lanterns in the Mist storyline the developers started with the Cormier server Lanterns event. This raid and presumably this year's expansion all tie into this overarching storyline. The devs like to do this. They'll create a grand overarching storyline that all content falls into for a while. So they did this with like Planar Eyes and Vecna. So this is a continuation of that kind of thing. The raid consists of 2 encounters, one of which is optional. The optional fight is first. It's the Baylor returning from the Fire over Moorgrave raid, but with some changes. So you can choose through dialogue whether you want to fight him or not. Doing the optional with the Baylor seems to give you 2 in chest instead of 1. So I'll explain to you the optional fight now. In the optional, the Baylor fights the party in conjunction with various trash that are shadow monsters like Hezrus and Glazbrus. The Baylor is very similar to how he behaves in Fire over Moorgrave. Like he still does his jump area of effect damage. He still does his lightning attack, but it's a little different because he spams his lightning attack constantly, and that's because the lightning attack needs to be used as part of the mechanic of this fight. So this is how the fight works. The tank role is very important in this raid. So the goal of this encounter. The tank wants to put himself between the Baylor and the shadow trash. So what needs to happen is the tank needs to line up the Baylor properly so that his lightning attack hits the trash, because you can't initially beat down the Baylor very well. He has tons of DR that only goes away once the shadow monsters die. But the shadow monsters also have lots of extra defenses until you drop their shadows, and you drop their shadows by getting the Baylor to shoot them with his lightning attack. So you have the tank lined up between both. You dodge the lightning from the Baylor, get him to shoot the trash, then you kill the trash, and once the trash dies, that means the DR on the Baylor goes down, so you beat on the Baylor. So that lets you actually kill the Baylor, but you repeat that cycle several times until the Baylor goes down. So that's the first encounter. The second encounter is the main phase. So you go inside this, how do I describe it, like building or almost castle. And one of the first things you do when you go in is you pick up some lanterns. Everyone can pick them up, but every party member can only carry 1, and each lantern has 3 charges. And I also want to note that this has nothing to do with the Cormier event. You don't have to have participated in the event and filled up a lantern or anything like that to participate in this raid. That doesn't matter. These lanterns are separate from that. So everyone can pick up a lantern with 3 charges, and then everyone goes up to the final fight room, and you get to see the boss. And the boss is a Hydra, and it looks freaking awesome. They did a great job. It looks really, really cool. So once you're in this room, you're kind of in this dark room surrounded by mists, and the mist appears every so often, like maybe every 30 seconds or so, and it seems to have a cloud kill-like effect on the entire party unless someone uses a lantern charge to clear it. So like I don't know what the exact time is, but every 30 seconds or so, someone needs to use a lantern charge to clear the mist. You also use the lanterns for subsequent phases of the raid. During the fight, you'll have to constantly since you're constantly using the lanterns, you need to have a team of people assigned to run out and get new lanterns and kind of be the lantern runners to constantly refresh, because again, everyone can only carry 1 and they only have 3 charges. Once you get into the room as well, there's a lot of trash that spawns that you got to fight. There's also various circles in the room. There's 4 in the corners and 1 in the center. And they can be different colors. And when you use a lantern charge inside them, it can turn them to white, but they can be either blue, red, or white. Red, I'm not 100% sure yet what red does. I think it spawns more difficult trash. Blue is the color circles need to be in order to kill the various Hydra heads. So basically, as you kill the trash, you also need to beat on the Hydra after the main Hydra boss, which the main tank will be tanking, of course. and more into the tanking stuff later because there's more, quite a bit to this. The party will beat on the Hydra until a head pops off. So at some point, a head will pop off. So there are, I believe, five. Yeah, there's 5 heads, but the head needs to be pulled into a blue circle. It seems that there's, of the 4 circles in the corner, that there is a certain order. I'm not quite sure yet how the raid tells you what order you need, but in any case, you need to pull them into a certain blue circle. And once the head is pulled into a blue circle, so you kind of need a second tank for this raid, someone else who can kind of pull Hydra heads. So after a Hydra head is pulled into a blue circle, you need to use a lantern. And then the blue circle will turn from blue to white. Then you kill the Hydra head, and that will finish it off. And there is quite a bit of party coordination here because you need to make sure that you don't use the lantern until after the Hydra head's inside. If you turn the circle to white before the Hydra head gets there, it's not going to kill the Hydra head. It's going to pop back onto the main Hydra. So you have to kind of like confirm it, kind of like maybe it's not like the PN laser, but it's the same sort of mechanic in that you need to put them in a certain place and then confirm the kill by using a thing. In Project Nemesis or Titan, it's the laser, but in this raid, it's just using a lantern charge, which they perform like clickies. But yeah, you got to repeat this process for all the heads. And when you're down to 1 head left on the main boss, the tank will pull it to the center. So there's the circle in the center is also a tiny green circle in the center. And once you drag him into that green circle in the room, the party beats it down and you kill it. But that's after having to kill all of the heads individually. You have to repeat the process with using a lantern in the circle 4 times because there's 5 heads. 4 you need to kill, and then the 5th one you kill at the end to confirm to actually kill the main boss. So you really want 2 tanks for this raid, or maybe 1 tank and a kiter, because while the main tank has the main boss aggro, there's a large debuff to their defenses, which I believe is PRR and MRR, and there's also a big penalty to incoming healing. So this goes up to 10 stacks, and I believe it is minus 250 heal amp, but it's a lot of heal amp. So on lower difficulties like normal, if you have a healer healing the tank in addition to the tank kind of spamming renewal on himself, which is what I did, you could heal through it. But on higher difficulties, you're going to want to have 2 tanks, and you're going to want to switch tanks throughout the raid to clear these debuffs, because it seems to me, and this is another thing with it being only 1 day in, apologies if I get this wrong, but it seems that there's no way to clear that debuff other than just switching off and having someone else tank the main Hydra for a while. So there's quite a bit of, probably want to have 1 tank assigned to pulling the Hydra heads, 1 assigned to the main tank or to the main boss, and then have them switch roles every once in a while through the raid. But as said, on normal, you can probably just heal through that debuff, but I'm sure on higher difficulties you won't be able to. And we've only tried this on normal yesterday on Lamania. And what else we want to say? Trash. I mentioned trash, but there's a lot of trash to deal with through the raids. There's also these skull heads that stay in one position and kind of rotate, doing a cone of damage in a fixed position. There's also Miststalkers and things like that you might have seen in the Coromir Lantern event. So this raid has a lot going on. There's a lot of different roles. You need DPS, but you also need probably 2 tanks, or at least 1 tank and a kiter. Probably at least a healer and DPS, and communication is really important. You need to make sure the party's communicating in terms of when you're using the lanterns, that you're using it in the right spot, in the right order. The tank and the kiter, or the 2 tanks are going to need to communicate to swap roles. So there's a lot going on here. You need people running lanterns and organizing the uses of those lanterns. So there's a lot going on. You even having fast characters is really nice, because you've got to pop out to the lantern location outside the boss room to get a new lantern. And it's quite a bit. It's a bit of a run, and you have to go up some ramps. So having like fast characters, like say monks or barbarians or something, being lantern runners is probably optimal. But there's a lot to this raid, and it's really cool. There's a lot of things that they thankfully got away from raids like Threats Old and New and Legendary Chronoscope. Most notably, the silly HP bloat. I'm so glad that they aren't doing that. We don't have mobs with giant amounts of HP. I mean, party coordination really matters in this raid. Not that DPS doesn't matter in defenses and all that, it does, but things matter other than just DPS. Party coordination and communication's an important part of this, so I really like that. If you remember, after Threats Old and New, I did a first impressions video like this, ripping that raid to shreds, and because frankly it's not a good raid. So I'm so happy that for a video like this, I can make a positive video praising the devs. They did a really good job. This is exactly the kind of design I want to see with raids and DDO. The only complaint I really have is I would love to see one more phase in the raid. The raid's a decent length. It's not a short raid, I don't think, but I would like to see like maybe a puzzle phase or something added. I mean, a couple other minor things. I would love to see the devs maybe pretty up the inside of the raid a little bit more with the walls and the floor textures, but this is on Lamania, so maybe they just haven't gotten that into the build yet. Also, with the Baylor fight at the beginning, I don't really see the point of making that optional. I mean, the raid's not so long that that can't just be a normal part of the raid. Just have to do the Baylor fight. I mean, I guess giving people the option to have a shorter raid is not a bad thing, but I mean, if it was me, if I was the raid designer, I think it's a really cool fight, and I just would make it a normal part of the raid rather than an optional. The last thing I want to talk about is the loot. The loot from the raid so far consists of two things: weapons and minor artifacts, and they can all be crafted. So the artifacts can have base stats added to them, insightful or quality as well, according to what I'm seeing on Lamania. So this kind of stat of your choice. So that's the artifacts, and the weapons can have a legendary green steel like effect of your choice added, say like salt or ooze or something. The ingredients to craft these artifacts and weapons to their completed state can be found in the raid. And the other thing, the artifacts also contain sun or moon augment slots, so they're continuing that system that we saw in the rat pack, adventure pack we saw recently, and of course it started in Myth Drenor. So guys, yeah, that's gonna be it for the raid. Let me know like what you think, if you're looking forward to this, if you were able to hop on Lamani and run it. I would be interested in just hearing what you guys think. But yeah, it's a really good raid, and it's free to play. So everyone, all y'all should go and give it a shot whenever it does hit the live servers. That's going to be it for this video. Hope you all enjoyed. I want to say thank you to my Patreon supporters, Brent Erickson and Brian Rasmussen. You all have a good rest of your week. Take care.